health is not merely an absence of disease.
Right.
It's a complete physical, mental and social well-being that we are looking at. Bach flower therapy is something which is more to do with the emotional and mental well-being of a person. Bach flower system is very self-sufficient system of 38 flowers, and each of the 38 flowers, they correspond to a certain emotional state. Most of your illnesses, physical ailments are psychosomatic.
Absolutely.
It has its emotional origin, that your body is the feedback system of how you're doing otherwise. If there's something wrong physically, it's a feedback that you need to correct something emotionally. A lot of people, they think that Bach flower therapy is aromatherapy, Bach flower therapy is homeopathy. Most of them come to you saying that we want to keep our mind stable so that we can handle the situation. In Bach flower therapy, there are many medicines for anger. So in Bach flower therapy, a single dose also works. And it's accepted because they're more like emotional multivitamins. They're not medicines.
What if I tell you there is a magical therapy that can work on your fear, anxiety, anger, burnout and other emotional challenges? आज के एपिसोड में बात होगी उन्हीं इमोशनल चैलेंजेस की। मेरा नाम है वीना सोनी और मैं होस्ट हूँ H2O ज़िंदगी की, जहाँ बात होती है कि कैसे आप एक ज़्यादा हेल्दी, हैप्पी और ऑसम ज़िंदगी बिता सकते हैं। आज हम बात करेंगे बach flower थेरेपी की, एक ऐसी थेरेपी जो कि आपकी इमोशनल वेलबींग के लिए डिज़ाइन की गई है, क्योंकि आज हमारी खास मेहमान है विधि जोबनपुत्रा, जो कि एक bach flower थेरेपिस्ट हैं। तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं आज का हीलिंग सफर। A warm welcome, Vidhi. Thank you so much for being part of H2O Zindagi.
Thank you so much. In fact, I am very privileged that I'm here because there are very few places which intend to reach out to a larger audience selflessly.
Thank you.
That's why H2O Zindagi, I have been looking at it for quite some time and it's doing really great.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations for all the work that you've been doing.
So sweet of you. Thank you so much, Vidhi. And मैं भी बहुत keen हूँ, bach flower therapy को समझने के लिए, because there are a lot of modalities which I understand, which I know, but this is something very new to me as well, and I would want my audience also to know about this. Bach flower therapy आखिरकार है क्या?
So Bach flower therapy is something which is more to do with the emotional and mental well-being of a person. Now when I say emotional and mental well-being, there are many modalities. Okay, so just to make it simple, let's break it down into sort of 4 types.
Okay.
So one is the material-based system, where let's say homeopathy or Bach flower therapy, that is categorized into that, where you consume something to heal.
Okay.
Okay, so Bach flower therapy are literally like drops of flowers, which you consume, and they address different emotional states.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's a material-based system. There are other systems as well. So let's say a sensory-based system. So your aromatherapy will be a part of that because you're smelling it. You're using your sense of smell. You're not ingesting it in any way. So that aromatherapy is in sensory-based system. Then you have more activity or touch-based systems like yoga, because you're moving your body to gain that state of health. And then the other one would be, let's say, energy-based systems, which is more instructor-based. So something like Reiki or tarot reading, where the intuitive methods of the instructor becomes very important. So broadly, these are the 4 types, and Bach flower would fall somewhere more near to ingesting something, but it's fragrance free.
Okay, okay. Yeah. So aromatherapy से इसका कोई connection नहीं है?
There is no connection. There is no connection.
Okay. Yeah. And you mentioned कि homeopathy जैसा है. You're putting it together, right? कि homeopathy and Bach flower therapy are together. So how are they similar or how are they different?
Very important to know, because a lot of problems arise when confusion happens between these two. As I said, they are classified into the same system. Also, if you look at Dr. Edward Bach, who is the founder of this system, He was a homeopathy doctor, but before that he was a bacteriologist, he was a pathologist, he came from a very scientific background. And he realized the shortcomings of all these systems and then came up with an independent system called Bach flower system. This is UK based, so that is also one of the reasons why it is not so popular right now in India. But yeah, it comes from a homeopath, but they are very different because Bach flower system is very self-sufficient system of 38 flowers, and each of the 38 flowers, they correspond to a certain emotional state. So say for example, you have Mimulus as a Bach flower, which is addressing all kinds of fears. Then you have, let's say, Hornbeam, which is also a type of flower which is to do more with the energy state, the lack of energy. So you have Larch, which is more to do with confidence. So there are 38 flowers and 38 emotional states. Yeah, so it's very different from homeopathy, but it's very simple to use, and that is what sets it apart from homeopathy.
Vidhi, you mentioned about emotional states कि fear है या आप lack of confidence feel कर रहे हैं, maybe self doubt feel कर रहे हैं, तब आप Bach flower therapy use कर सकते हैं, which means it has nothing to do with the physical ailments. If you are physically not fit, this is not the therapy for you?
Yes and no. Okay. Yes, because the system clearly says that this is for the emotional and mental well-being. It is in no way connected to physical ailments. And the reason is that Dr. Bach firmly believed that the intelligence is in arresting the disease at the emotional source. Yeah. So once you do that, there are very less chances that it will transform into any physical ailment. Right? But we now know that most of your illnesses, physical ailments, are psychosomatic.
Absolutely.
It has its emotional origin. And now we have neuroscience which can explain a little better. So I will try to do that, because we have seen that we start with giving the remedies for emotional state, but over the course of time, let's say 3 months, 4 months, you automatically see an improvement in the physical ailments. In my own case, I had started taking it for something else, and after 6 months I realized that my motion sickness is just gone.
Great.
It was not even on my mind. I thought that I have to live with it or maybe avoid going in a car.
Okay.
But now it's been 7 years. I was on homeopathy earlier, but
for
at
motion
present,
sickness, was it for motion sickness that you were taking homeopathy?
Yes, homeopathy deals with all the ailments. So motion sickness was one of them, but it was not on my priority list.
Okay.
But since at least, let's say 2 years when I'm taking Bach flower therapy, I've realized motion sickness is gone. I have traveled almost the entire India in the most rough modes of transport possible, and it has just gone. Coming back to your question, so yes, there is a connection. I'll try to explain in simple terms. So if you look at, if you dissect your brain, you have something called the limbic system,
right.
You have something called the hypothalamus. Both of them are very closely connected to your emotional well-being, emotional, behavioral processing. Your Bach remedies directly work over there. Okay, and limbic system is very well connected to hypothalamus, which is everything to do with, regulating your hunger, regulating your energy, regulating your temperature. So in a way, if both are connected, you automatically see a difference. Let me explain in more simple terms. So we all know about different hormones, and you are happy and it releases certain hormones. The same way, there's something called cytokines. Okay. Now, every negative emotion that we go through, it affects the release of cytokines. Okay, and when it affects the release of it, it can affect it in 2 ways. One is that it can increase the production of it, and the second is it can decrease the production of it. Both are problematic, because if it increases the production of it, you get something called allergies, because it's a defense system of body, but it's extra defense. Your body is fighting more than required, because cytokines are more in proportion. So let's say if you're angry, which is to do with something more than required, or if you're overexcited about some things and you're getting anxious because of that, something is more in you. most of the times you will see its connection to allergies.
Okay.
If you see the other side of it, where you have less cytokines being released, you see something where your immune system is suppressed. So there are more chances that you will get infected. There are more chances of pathogens entering your body because your body just can't respond to it. So the science is very well connected, but there is a reason why Dr. Bach wouldn't have written this, because everything that we know about it right now, it is all after 1950s. And Bach therapy is older than that. So that is why I understand that why people can't relate these things, because the timeline is like that.
Yeah. And also because it talks about only the emotional state. Maybe that's why people are not able to connect with it. To tell you the truth, people identify with their emotions very late in life. Somehow I feel that. It's only the physical ailments that teach them that yes, there is something emotional thing that is going wrong. And till the time they're not physically suffering, they will not reach out to any modality or to any doctor.
True.
And that's why maybe the reach is little less.
Absolutely, because even if you read so much of literature that Edward Bach has written, he says that your body is the feedback system of how you're doing otherwise. If there's something wrong physically, it's a feedback that you need to correct something emotionally. And he writes extensive pages on that. So he understands this connection, because again, you're coming from a background which is of homeopathy and they see things holistically. But again, as I said, the intent was very different. We use it that way. Yeah. But you're right that the more people use it, the more they see the difference in their physical ailments as well. But we do not pitch it like that, because we want to stay true to the system. If any physical ailments, you see any recovery in that, it's a bonus. But otherwise, it's all about how you feel.
Right, it's about feelings, and we have to get in tune to our feelings to understand that there is something wrong, that we are feeling fearful, or we are not feeling confident, or we are feeling that there is a lot of self-doubt. Yes, and as you said, 38 emotional states, which can be, which we can recover from Bach flower therapy. But the whole thing is, till the time somebody knows it, they will not reach out. Till the time they don't understand themselves, they will not reach out, right? Which means it becomes very restricted.
Yes. Yeah. So that is one reason, as you said, but that you need to reach out. That's one. The second thing why it is, I wouldn't say people don't know about it or haven't heard about it, but there's so much of misunderstanding of the whole system. I'll give you an example. A lot of people, they think that Bach flower therapy is aromatherapy, Bach flower therapy is homeopathy. Or the worst misconception that they have is that in India at least, because this medicine system is of foreign origin, in India the foreign practice is not very regulated. So that leads to a lot of malpractices and unethical ways of practicing it. So right now a lot of them practice Bach flower therapy, but let's say just 2% of them are actually licensed. Okay. And the worst thing is that they use different systems to identify emotions, which is not allowed actually. So if, let's say, I'm identifying the emotional state that you are going through, I will do it through discussions. But in major parts of India, you will see someone picking up a tarot card to identify emotions. Now, nothing against tarot, but this mixing of systems is not allowed. So you can't be using a tarot card and saying, okay, maybe you're going through this emotional state. You are going to go wrong in that. High chances, because the mixing is not allowed. Or sometimes people will close their eyes intuitively. The instructor would say that, okay, maybe you're going through this, please take this. And what happens is that you don't see effect. In fact, I can guarantee you that today, let's say, everyone suddenly wakes up tomorrow morning and comes to know about Bach flower therapy and everything that they do. And everyone is positive about using it. Still, I can guarantee you it will not work. Why? Because a lot of homeopathy pharmacy manufacture it. And the way they manufacture it is wrong.
Okay.
And the easiest way to find out is that if you buy a Bach flower therapy bottle from a homeopathy pharmacy, most of the homeopathy pharmacy, not all of them.
But can you do that? Like you just go and say, okay, I need this?
Yes, you can. You can do that. Just the way I would go to a homeopathy pharmacy and say, oh, I need Nux Vomica 200.
Okay.
So you can do that.
But you've gone to a doctor to identify that you need that medicine.
Not really, not always. There are certain medicines which are like Polycrest, which means everyone knows that it can be in your first aid kit.
Okay.
So similarly, you can go to a pharmacy and say, give me this bottle, and every time you see a number mentioned on it, like batch, let's say Mimulus 30 or large 30, which means it's prepared in a wrong way. Because the potency concept does not exist in Bach flower therapy.
Okay.
So every time you buy a bottle, the number does not need to be mentioned because it doesn't make sense. The preparation is very different. So every time you use that, imagining that it will work for you, it will not work for you. And I'm saying this because all this has happened to me. Plus you will see more than 80% of ethyl alcohol in that.
Okay.
Now Bach system says that you can use it for plants, you can use it for babies, newborn babies, you can use it for lactating mothers, you can use it for anybody. But tell me, will you ever give something to your child which is so much high on alcohol and not diluted? So the preparation system, because it's not regulated in India, the way in which it is manufactured is not aligning with what it should be, and you will not see any effect.
So these are the malpractices, I would say.
All the malpractices which are much more than ethical practices, I would say.
Okay.
Which is very, very problematic right now.
And that's why maybe the Bach flower therapy is not becoming popular.
Yes, it's not becoming popular, and it's losing its name. But we know that we know where to source it from, we know how to make it, and we know how to identify the emotions, and we follow strictly the code of conduct because we hold a license, we all have a license number. So anytime you go to a Bach flower therapist, please ask if you have a license. It's fine, it's your right to know.
Okay.
And
But as you said that it's not allowed to mix up modalities.
Yes.
But don't you think it becomes easier when you mix up the modalities? Because see, there is certain knowledge which somebody has acquired by learning all these modalities.
Definitely.
And why not use all the information rather than just stick to one thing?
I agree to you that that is one way of looking at it. But the biggest problem is that through whatever data we have, wherever the systems have been mixed, the accuracy has gone for a toss.
Okay.
So, in fact, a lot of them, they do start with the same good intention, I would say. The intention is never bad. But what ends up happening is exactly the reverse. And if you see, the Bach Center clearly says that these are the ways in which you will practice, because this makes sure that you get the same reproducible results. So if you define science, science says that results have to be reproducible. If I perform an experiment today and I'll get a certain result.
True.
Tomorrow if I experiment the same thing, I should get the same result.
Right.
Then it is science. So if they are claiming Bach flower therapy is science, they need reproducible results. And that can only happen if there's a certain method. You can't change that method
Okay.
if you want the results.
Okay. And as it's designed by a doctor, of course, a
Yes.
homeopathic doctor. So is it really science, or is it, because some people call it pseudoscience?
It does. Yeah. Correct. I get you.
So is it really a science?
So as I explained earlier too, that you have a lot of neuroscience concepts clearly aligned with it. See, if you look at pseudoscience, pseudoscience is something which cannot give you reproducible results, as I mentioned. Bach flower therapy gives you reproducible results. If I give you a certain flower, if I give the same flower to, let's say, somebody else, they will see the same improvement.
Okay. But then our symptoms have to be same, isn't it?
Yes. Symptoms have to be same. Your triggers can be different.
Okay.
Say for example, let's talk about fear, because that's easily understood by the audience. You have a fear of dogs and somebody else has a fear of heights. The trigger is different, but the emotion is the same.
Right.
Then I can give the same medicine. But if say there's a third person who has a fear of a very different kind, And the fear is more to do with the well-being of someone close to them. Let's say a mother who is constantly in fear because the child is away from the mother, maybe in school, and she's constantly fearing something bad must have happened to him. Has he eaten well? What if something has happened wrong? There is a fear, but it is for somebody else. So then you give something called red chestnut.
Okay.
You don't give mimulus, which I would have given you if you had fear of dogs. So within the fear category also, there are very specific flowers. And that is the beauty of the system. For any system to work, it has to have two things. It has to be very, very specific so that it gives you accurate and good results. And one is it should be simple. Because if it's simple, it's easy to understand.
Right.
If it's easy to understand, it makes it more accessible to a larger audience.
Right.
Now that is exactly what was the shortcoming of homeopathy. Homeopathy, if you see, there are about more than 6,000 medicines minimum.
Okay.
Which means that I have full faith in the system, but I will always have to go to a homeopath to heal myself.
Right.
Probably somewhere or the other I will learn to pop a pill on my own, but mostly I will be left at the mercy of the homeopath.
So which means as a Bach flower therapist, you can be your own therapist.
Yes, it empowers you.
Okay.
So in the beginning, obviously you go to a therapist, but the therapist is not your doctor. They are just facilitators who guide you till the time you learn to identify your own emotions and use it yourself. And that was the whole idea of the system. It was to empower people, not to make someone dependent on any kinds of medicine.
Right. So let's go to your story. As you said that you were taking homeopathy,
Right.
and then you shifted to Bach flowers. So
Yes.
what was it
Yes.
that made you shift, and what was your journey which made you pick up Bach flower therapy, and now you are teaching it, right?
Right. More than teaching, I mean, I'm practicing it right now. So if I go back to my childhood, you name any disease and I would have it. I would have motion sickness, I would have sinusitis, I would have asthma, I would have nasal allergies of all kinds. And my vitamin deficiencies were at its peak. And I was a person in my family and myself, we were very ignorant of health and nutrition. You come from a typical Gujarati family, you know the kind of breakfast we would have. So everything is fried and nutrition is not even in your dictionary.
Okay.
And you come from there and suddenly every day something's going wrong with your health. And then I realized that what is this? Every day you're dying slowly.
Right.
And what happens is in allopathy, let's say I have 5 problems, I am popping a different medicine for all 5. So azithromycin, which a lot of them use as the most basic antibiotic for throat infections, it had become like my staple food.
Oh.
And it was horrible. Okay. And then every day I would pop a pill to an extent where I knew the names of all the medicines.
Okay.
So it was horrible, and then I had to do something about it.
Right.
So then I switched to homeopathy, and I realized that, wow, I had also tried Ayurveda. Probably I was not as committed to Ayurveda as I was to other modalities, but I switched to homeopathy and I could see a stark difference where you just have one medicine and everything just falls in place. And I was very, very impressed with it. But then it hit a roadblock where after a few years I realized that, okay, everything's going well. The only problem is, there are 2 problems which are very personal actually. One is that I would all the time have to go to a homeopath. And second is in India, for all good intentions, they do not reveal the name of the medicine.
Right.
Because a lot of people start overthinking about it, and fair enough, it should be like that. But I was not okay with it. I felt that transparency is a basic thing which I expect. And then I just bumped across Bach flower therapy, sheer coincidence. I was searching something online and I bumped into it, I read about it, and I was literally laughing at it. I said, this is too good to be true. This is impossible. And to experiment, I ordered a lot of Bach flower remedies from an Indian brand. I wouldn't want to name the brand. And I used it for about 15 days and obviously nothing happened. And I said, what is this malpractice? I mean, I didn't know it was a malpractice. I just thought that the system is flawed.
Right.
Then fortunately I bumped across a trainer who said that we teach these courses. I said, let me just learn about it. Forget it, out of curiosity. And then I enrolled into it. Then I knew, okay, what to buy, where to buy, how to identify your emotions. And then I finished all the 3 levels. I got my license, I wrote my exams, and I'm so grateful that that has happened. So it was, Bach flower therapy was literally a coincidence, but yeah, it has been a process which I now see. I can't even imagine what I was in
but
childhood.
can you connect the dots? See, as you said that you were looking for something because you were not okay going to the doctor, and that's how you came across.
Right.
So it's actually your curiosity that led you.
Yes,
to
curiosity and this excessive desire for self-sufficiency. Yeah. That, you know, I want to empower myself. I should be able to heal myself if needed. So yeah, that was the whole idea behind, you know, bumping across it.
And you are now helping people, right? Through Bach flower therapy, you are helping people. So if you can just give me some examples, like we spoke about fear. So what kind of things people bring to you? कि क्या problem है हमें? What do they bring to you that this is what I want to get rid of, or this is what something I'm looking to resolve in my life?
Right. So the most common fear that somebody would come to you for is stage fright.
Okay.
And I'm sure you would be able to relate to it. It's the most common fear.
I teach them through communication, yes.
Exactly. And there are different ways in which you address it. I'm sure from the brief conversation that we had, I know that you sort of train them to speak in a certain way to yourself.
Yes.
And that really works wonders. But yeah, this is the most common thing, that stage fear is my fear, and I have a very important event coming up. I have put all the efforts, but I don't know now, will I be able to present it well? Will I be able to dance at a certain event, which is very important for my family members?
Okay.
It comes from very basic fears. These are very clearly defined fears, and these cases are very easy to handle because you just know the answer. But most of the cases that come to you, they don't even know that fear is the main thing. But you have to see what happens to them. So once you ask them that, okay, when you're going through a certain negative emotional state, what happens to you? Then they'll say, okay, my hand starts shivering. I just go round and round into my own house. I start sweating. Then you have to realize that, okay, it's going towards fear. It's going towards overthinking, which is adding to that fear. So then you combine the overthinking and fear medicines. And it could be about very gruesome situations at home. It could be about situations where, which is more to do with health. Let's say somebody in the family is in the hospital and there's this constant fear that we will lose them. So there are so many different kinds of fear, and most of them come to you saying that we want to keep our mind stable so that we can handle the situation. So it is always with that intent that we want to serve better, which is very selfless most of the time, and you feel good about it and bad about it, but you learn to address it. Yeah.
Vidhi, you mentioned about fear.
Yes.
There are some other common emotions nowadays people are feeling. One of them is anger, I would say. Or maybe burnout. Nowadays you ask people and they're angry about everything or anything, you know, you don't even know that what is the reason behind their anger. But is there something that Bach flower therapy can help them with?
Everything.
Okay.
And the most, let's talk about anger first.
Right.
So anger is very common and it takes different forms. You call it frustration and a reaction to that frustration. It could be about a revengeful kind of anger. It could be about so many things, right? In Bach flower therapy, there are many medicines for anger. There's not one specific one. Just the way we spoke about fear, I'll give you an example. Let's say your anger. So the whole idea is there are two things. Where is the trigger of that anger? And what is the way in which someone is expressing that anger? Those two things will decide which remedy you need. Say for example, you are someone who is very vocal when they are angry. Let's say something has hurt me and I'm constantly at the top of my voice shouting about it, throwing the objects here and there. It's very visible form of anger. So then you have something called Holly.
Okay.
And most of the times this anger comes in people who are very oversensitive. So there's a good and the bad side to it. There's another kind of anger which I personally had a lot, and that has completely gone now, is the anger that would come from something that has not affected you personally, but something that that is happening in the world and you are angry about it. So let's say somebody on the street is hitting a dog, and I would get really angry about it. Or something has happened in politics, and I'm angry about, oh, why is it not like this? Why is the injustice happening to the underprivileged?
So then you become vocal about it, or were you suppressing it? Because sometimes people suppress anger.
Yes, very important. So in these two cases, everyone is very vocal. But there's another kind of anger where no matter how angry you are, you hold it inside. So there's another remedy for that. So something like agrimony will be for someone who keeps everything inside, and in general struggles with expressiveness, anger being one of them. Holly will be for somebody where anger is very expressed very explicitly. You look at vervain, which I used to take, is about anger that is triggered from external situations. So there are so many anger remedies, so it is very difficult to, even in the consultation, really hit that trigger point. That, okay, what is the trigger? And then if you know the trigger and you know the expression, usually expression is easy to catch, because someone, when they talk about it, you see their tone changing, you see their face going red, and you know that this is an expressive person. But somebody, no matter how much anger they hold, they have a poker face, most of the times it will be someone who's suppressing everything inside. So anger is dealt with in very different ways, and many different ways in Bachelor therapy.
Right.
If you talk about burnout, again, burnout, the trigger and the expression will determine everything.
Right.
One of the expression of burnout is constant feeling of being sleepy.
Okay.
That's an expression because your body is giving you a feedback that there's a burnout, you need to sleep. There's another kind of burnout where you're not feeling sleepy, but you are constantly wanting to distract yourself and look for something which is more mentally stimulating. Sometimes the burnout also happens because there's a certain routine which is very monotonous and you need to come out of that. So physically you're not very engaged with something. It's not that kind of burnout, it's the mental burnout, it's mental fatigue. So for that kind of burnout, there's a different remedy. For physical burnout, there's a different remedy, which usually comes when you're nursing someone. Maybe somebody close to you is ill, and you're trying to help them out. So that kind of burnout, hospital ke chakkar ho rahe, whatever is happening. So for every kind of burnout, there's a different remedy.
Right.
So that is the whole beauty of the system, that you name an emotion and there will be one flower at least from the 38 flowers that will align with it. And that's the whole simplicity of the system. All your emotional states in a 38 kind of chart.
But it will be specific to you, as you said, that if you're angry, what are you doing? What are your triggers? If you're burnt out, what are you doing? How are you reacting? Or what are your triggers? And what has led to that burnout? Depends then which flower will you suggest?
Correct. So if, let's say there are 38 remedies, we are allowed to mix 7 in one bottle. Now, somebody would say that if there are 38 remedies, does this mean that only 38 kinds of people will benefit from it? No, because when the way you mix and make combinations, there are 293 million combinations possible.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, so it could be anyone, any part of the world going through any emotion, and it can be addressed.
And how much time does it take? Like, is it you have to take certain dosage and how do you take it? So if you can explain on that.
So again, different remedies will require different dosage.
Okay.
So something like burnout. Sometimes it's just that Monday morning feeling that today I don't feel like going to work at all. And no matter what you do, that feeling doesn't go away. Or if you've just returned from vacation and you don't want to go to work, that time a single dose is enough.
Okay, so you don't need to repeat it at all?
No. So in Bachelor therapy, a single dose also works. And it's accepted because they're more like emotional multivitamins. They're not medicines. So just like you would take a vitamin pill, you can take 1 dose of it.
Okay.
In certain cases, in most of the cases actually, we recommend that you continue it for at least 3 months. And that is when you will see a lot of difference, which is more permanent of some kind. But in 21 days, you will definitely see things changing inside you, and you will be conscious of it that things are changing. So even 1 bottle which lasts for about 3 weeks is enough for you to feel the difference. Okay. Of what it can do, and then it's your call whether you want to continue, you don't want to continue. For some people 1 year is not enough, for some people 2 months are also enough.
Okay.
So it depends on the individual and their commitment to everything, but it is non-addictive. Right. So even if you leave it, nothing's going to happen.
So is it something that stays with you throughout the life? So let's say somebody comes to you with stage fear and you give them certain drops and they take it for 21 days and they feel that yes, they are very confident now. But is it that once they stop taking it, the fear will come back? How does this work?
Okay, so as I said, it's different for different people. Most of the time, if somebody is looking for long-term results and long-lasting results, we have seen that 6 to 9 months work fine.
Okay.
And maybe it will come back, but maybe it will come back after, let's say, 2 years or something, or maybe it will never come back. It depends on how your body is and what are the external factors that are triggering something. So maybe today you have a stage fear of performing in front of your own people, and maybe that is resolved. And tomorrow you want to address your fear about standing in front of 1,000 people and speaking.
Okay.
So things can come back, but the intensity is always less. It's never the same intensity that comes back. And also once your body knows that what is triggering it, how to manage it, everything automatically falls in place. This is what I have seen. Even in my case, even in my friend's case, everywhere we've seen this happen.
And Vidhi, tell me, how does a consultation session looks like? How long is it? Because as I'm talking to you, I'm understanding there is a lot of counseling involved in it, a lot of identification of the emotion, and then you are giving them, as per their symptoms or triggers, you're giving them the Bach flower. Right? The dosage. So how does a session look like?
Okay. So very first thing is, it's important for anybody who's intending to heal and who has decided that, okay, let me try Bach flower therapy. It is extremely important that you first check on the Bach Center website the list of licensed practitioners. It is very easily available. It's just a click away. Pick the practitioner which is nearest to you. Or if you know somebody, then okay. Once someone walks in for a consultation, most of the times what they have in mind is it's going to be a counseling session in addition to a medicine. Which is fair enough, because as you correctly mentioned, that it involves a lot of discussion about identifying the emotions. It involves a lot of speaking about things, very similar to how a homeopathy consultation would look like. But there are 2-3 points which are very different. So in case of counseling, when you speak to a counselor, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a certain advice given. There's a certain method which is introduced to the person about how do you handle a certain situation.
Okay.
So in a way, it's not just about emotions. Counseling is also about the story of that person. For us, that story is not important. The story is just a tool through which we will get a clue to what to ask and how do you identify emotions. So we don't advise or counsel at all, simply because we are not trained to do so. We are just there to listen. So just the way you would go to a doctor, a normal doctor, physician, and say that, oh, my knee is paining, my head is paining, give me something for that. These are physical symptoms. Someone who's come for a consultation to a Bach flower therapist would give emotional symptoms. That, okay, my hand is shivering, I feel very lost, I feel a certain burnout, I feel a lot of fear. These are symptoms. We are noting down the symptoms and prescribing the remedy. We are not counseling, we are not asking anybody to change. So here the medicine will do the work of or the flowers will do the work of bringing about the change.
Right.
We are just facilitating that change.
Right.
We are not advising or counseling in any way, because that would be wrong, because we are not trained as that. So yes, the discussion would go long, but there's nothing
It's
like
just for
counseling.
identification.
Yes, it's just the emotional symptoms, and the story helps the client get clarity on what they are going through.
Right.
So it's just that way, and it goes for about at least 2 hours, the first
Okay.
consultation.
Okay.
The follow-up would happen every 3 weeks, and that would be obviously a little shorter.
Right.
But yeah, that's
And
how
can
it
this
looks
happen
like.
online, or it has to be offline?
I personally take it online after COVID, because I think that when it comes to people, at least a lot of people I've seen, there is a lot of negativity they associate with entering into a clinic. And even if you see a lot of ancient civilizations, they would all heal or talk about healing in public spaces. This concept of clinic comes very late. So, and Dr. Bach himself writes a lot about how hospitals should be designed philosophically and things like that. It's very interesting.
Oh,
So
I would love to know
is, yeah, so what I usually do is I'm open to someone speaking online. I'm open to someone speaking over a call. I'm open to them speaking through chat messages, but again, that we use different tools for that, because everyone should have a right to express through a medium that they are comfortable with. Some people are great with writing, but if you ask them to sit in front of you and speak, they will not speak a word.
Right.
And everyone should get that liberty to express the way they want. And I've realized when you meet somebody for the first time, when they meet a therapist for the first time, for some people that connect is very important, but for some people the barrier of a Zoom call is more important. So I right now take Zoom consultations. If I know a person, then I'm open to meeting them anywhere.
Right.
But these are usually close-knit family members where you know that it's safe to meet them anywhere. But otherwise, I stick to the Zoom consultations for now.
All right, all right. I think this was a lovely discussion, Vidhi. In fact, अगर आपको भी लगता है कि आप विधि से connect होना चाहते हैं, तो description box में, of course, we will be leaving the details so that you can connect with her. And I would like to thank you, Vidhi, for such a wonderful session. I would say, you gave all the information that was required. You gave all the information that how patch flower therapy can help people. And I would say that this was a brilliant, brilliant discussion that we had. Thank you so much.
No, I should be thankful that you gave me a platform to reach out to the people, and also to say that it's high time we realize that health is not merely an absence of disease.
Right.
It's a complete physical, mental and social well-being that we are looking at. And the more we understand this, the more we'll open our minds to what help is available to us.
Absolutely. And as we discussed during this also, that physical ailments will come later.
Yes.
First,
yes.
It's always the emotional state.
Yes.
If people are aware that there are emotions which are not addressed and they will convert into a physical ailment,
Correct.
they will quickly, I think at a very early stage, only reach out to such modalities which are available to them.
Right.
And thank you so much again for this lovely, lovely discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.